All right. Christmas and Hanukkah are over, and the New Year's just about a week away, a little less than a week away. So, what's coming up next for the USC football team? Let's talk about it on this episode of Locked On USC.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Marc, and thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. Whether you're watching on YouTube or wherever you like to download your podcast, please remember we are free, and always remember we appreciate your support. So if you are watching on YouTube and you haven't done so already, do me a favor, hit that red subscribe button. It means a lot. And to those of you who have, thank you so very, very much. All right, so this episode of Locked On USC is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. They help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, so did you get everything you wanted over Christmas and during Hanukkah, the week of Hanukkah? You may have found out, if you're in the giving mood, that some of those things you were hoping to give away or maybe even to receive, they got more expensive over the year. Costs have gone up. So how about the USC football season? Did you get what you anticipated, what you expected? I mean, when you reflect back, USC is 11-2 and counting. There's still one more game to go, and the football program, Heritage Hall, is a Heisman Trophy heavier. USC now has 8. I mean, are you content? Are you disappointed? I understand if there's a little bit of disappointment, considering what was dangled in front of you for dessert there at the end of the season. Nevertheless, I would imagine you're sitting at the table, Al Bundy style, right now, hand in your belt, kind of full, with a smile on your face. You should be. I think I'm going to try and tie together a little story here, have a little fun. You should know that the movie A Christmas Story is one of my favorite movies of all time. So if you're not a fan, we probably can't be friends. Well, maybe we can, but letting you know that it's a pretty good movie, and I hope everyone got to enjoy at least once, a couple hours, if not, the full 24 hours of that movie that was on over Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. It's always on at least one TV wherever I'm at. There's just so many funny and I guess poignant moments in that movie. Like towards the end of the movie, when you think all is right in the world and you have everything, and then you think you've experienced just a really picture perfect Christmas. You got everything you wanted, or at least you hope to get, and then someone lets the dogs in the house, and the meal is gone. The turkey's on the floor. Or in USC's recruiting class ranking, maybe you didn't get that top 10 class that apparently is necessary to make the playoffs, to win a championship. Look, it's true that the better players usually win the game. But that's kind of in the past. When I say the better players win the game, recruiting better players gets you to the playoffs or in a better position to win a championship. And in the past, that has been the case. Look, you look at some of the teams. You look at Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama. Those 3 of the 4 teams that are in the playoffs have done it through recruiting. And I guess you could say the same with TCU, but to a much lesser extent compared to those 3 programs. Um, Recruiting a top 10 class has gotten very expensive. So I've heard through the grapevine that there's some money that's being thrown around right now at college quarterbacks to keep them to stay in college that would rival free agency money in the NFL. And that word has gotten down to the high school rankings. So maybe USC got outbid for Mateo. He was that 5-star that USC was looking to bring to give him 4 in the early signing period. Or they got 3. Maybe there were other factors involved. I kind of alluded to this last week on one of the episodes of Locked on USC. So I guess if someone's going to come into your house and steal the Christmas turkey or the golden goose or the 5-star goose in this case, it might be less expensive to just order a transfer. In most cases, ordering out now is actually less expensive than recruiting. I mean, if you can't cook in your own house, then go out to dinner. Experience something new. I think that's how USC fans should look at this year's Christmas gift, what they got under the Christmas tree, or what Hannukah Harry left you throughout the week. You're not going to always get what you want. Sometimes you get that Red Ryder BB gun hiding behind the desk. Someone listens to your wishes, but you don't always get what you want. So again, that's my loose story of a Christmas story. How, USC fans, recruiting class, you got pretty much what you needed. Did you get what you wanted? Maybe, maybe not. I think you got what you needed. And, because again, Christmas happens for one day. And you might shop for Christmas for a week, 2 weeks, or, if you're one of those types who likes to prepare throughout the year. And that's kind of where recruiting comes in. Because you recruit throughout the year. But again, sometimes somebody is going to see the same thing you want, and they're going to outbid you for it. Or they're going to come into your house and they're going to take it. Whatever happened, it happened. But a top 10 recruiting class isn't I don't think it's going to be necessary going forward. Because really, what's the difference? If you can specifically point out the difference between a top 10 and what does the US say? Top 12, top 13, top 15, whatever. If you can point out the specific differences between a 10 and a 15, please give me the feedback. Let me know. Again, USC has shown that you can be just outside the top 10 recruiting. Lincoln Riley can say, we're not here to win recruiting, win the recruiting day. We're here to win championships. Well, we're going to find out if you can do it without a top 10 recruiting class, but with doing your due diligence, eating out, so to speak, with the transfer portal, and kind of making do with what you have. And when you do need to get the word out there, head on over to LinkedIn Jobs. Because these days, every potential new hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. So you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. So when you're over there, add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile. That way you can spread the word that you're hiring. They have simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experiences so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in developing, in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right. Once again, thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. However, make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today, the biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and Locked On's Take of the Day, Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. All right. So, talked a little bit about A Christmas Story and USC getting who and what they needed under the Christmas tree. Let's talk about the upcoming Cotton Bowl on New Year. Well, the day after New Year's, January 2nd. As of right now, the Trojans are currently a 2.5-point favorite over the Tulane Green Wave. And I'm curious, does Tulane have a bunch of key guys who are going to be unavailable? Because USC does. And I could have swore that the line was smaller than this a couple weeks ago. Like, USC -1.5. So it's apparently people feel USC will win the game, and 1.5 just isn't enough. USC is going to win by at least a field goal. Excuse me. USC is going to be without they could be without their starting quarterback. More on that in a moment. But we do know they're going to be without starting left guard Andrew Voorhees, starting center Brett Nealon, as well as starting wide receiver Addison. Yeah. Addison and Voorhees have made it known that they're going to take more time to rehab their injuries so they can prepare for the NFL draft. Brett Nealon, we know, is out because of injury that he suffered against Utah in the Pac-12 Conference Championship game. So, knowing that, and knowing defensively, excuse me, that USC's linebacker room is getting smaller, and let's be honest, that's not a good thing at this time. Just to remind everybody, Raylan Goforth, he's entered the portal, but he's already landed in Washington. He'll be playing for the Huskies next year. And yes, USC and Washington do play each other. Julian Simon, linebacker, rush end in the transfer portal. Taylor Katoa, linebacker, didn't have an impact when he was at USC. He was just recently joined by Tuasivi Nomura, who did play quite a bit this past season at linebacker. Look, I kind of get Nomura jumping into the transfer portal, especially with Tackett Curtis and the guys coming in through the transfer portal. Mason Cobb most recently, and Jamil Muhammad before him. It's Tuasivi's timing that is kind of curious for me. Let me remind everybody, this guy played in the game this year, at least for a few plays, with a bone sticking out of his skin. Yeah, that's pretty hardcore. So, I guess if you're looking to kind of show who you are, and put some more film out there on your resume, why not play in the bowl game before jumping into the transfer portal? Like I said, it's not like USC is deep at linebacker right now. And none of these transfer portal guys who are coming in are going to be available to play in the bowl game. So again, USC is a 2.5-point favorite, and while Lincoln Riley has not ruled out Caleb Williams for the game, a couple of weeks ago, he did say that it, it would take a lot of rehab to see, in his opinion, to see Caleb being available for the game. Well, update heading into into the Christmas break, when the team was practicing, is Caleb was practicing, whatever that means. Again, he's at practice, he's practices, he's walking through. Where is he at health wise? We know Lincoln Riley keeps his injury reports pretty much on mute. You don't hear about it. So whatever, Caleb is maybe 75% at this point. And I think that would be a very generous estimation, considering what I've heard how bad that hamstring was. Now, so as far as the Tulane Green Wave are concerned, I started learning other important names on that team besides just their head coach, Willie Fritz. Again, I love that name, Willie Fritz. Football name. One of the key players you Trojan fans better be aware of is running back Tajay Spears. He could provide what I guess is a dual type of effect, moving the ball on offense while at the same time keeping USC's offense off the field. In other words, if he can help Tulane use ball control, that's one way of neutralizing Lincoln Riley and USC's offense, regardless of who's playing quarterback, Caleb or Miller Moss. Spears, who is a junior, rushed for a season-high 199 yards and a touchdown against University of Central Florida in their conference championship game. And it was his 7th consecutive 100-yard rushing game, which makes it the longest active streak in FBS. He is also a tough guy to bring down. He has the 11th most evaded tackles in the FBS with 141. Okay. Allow me to quote Scooby-Doo. Ruh-roh. I'm saying that because the USC defense has the 12th most missed tackles in FBS with 141. Something going to give here. So as good as Spears is, he's not the only guy USC's defense has to be worried about. However, I remind people, it wasn't that long ago, even though it feels like it, USC shut down UCLA and Notre Dame's running game. There was a time when Zach Charbonnet was leading the FBS with 100-yard games and never losing a yard when he carried the ball. So USC, they've shown that they could shut down UCLA and Charbonnet. And what they did is they tried to make DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, beat the defense. Well, thank you, Corey Foreman. Tulane might not have a DTR, but they have a quarterback who's pretty good. His name doesn't get the notoriety or the headlines. Again, Tulane plays in the AAC and not the Pac-12. His name's Michael Pratt, and he has more than done his part this year. He's thrown for 2,776 yards, 25 touchdowns against only 5 interceptions. That's pretty good. So another thing the USC defense has to be aware of, he likes to spread the ball around. They have 4 players that have at least 30 catches on the year, and 5 or more have touchdowns. So, he doesn't have a go-to favorite. However, He does have one receiver who, toward the end of the year, did receive more attention, I guess, than the others. His name is Shea Wyatt, and he had 329 yards and 6 touchdowns. I think that was over the last 5 games of this season. So I'll dig a little bit deeper and see if they have a tight end that USC's defense should be concerned about. Much like USC, though, Tulane's defense has to show up as well. They're they've been Jekyll and Hyde this year. When they actually lost to UCF earlier in the year, and when they did that, their quarterback, the Golden Knights, Central Florida's John Reese Plumlee, he rushed for 176 yards and 2 touchdowns. So when they met again in their conference championship game, they held that same Mr. Plumlee to -7 yards rushing. Big difference. So let's assume that USC let's assume Caleb Williams is going to play, and he can do what he's known for. Obviously, Tulane can't allow Caleb to run around free. But at the same time, even if Caleb can't play and it's Miller Moss, they can't allow either one of those quarterbacks to sit back and pick apart their secondary. Because while Tulane has 24 sacks throughout on the regular season, they're not going to devastate USC's offensive line with their pass rush. But they have, I guess, they've been good. Whoever keeps track of these numbers, they've made contact with their opposing quarterbacks 219 times, which ranks 7th in FBS. So they can get into the backfield and, I guess, touch them, but they don't necessarily sack the quarterback. So, but this is where things can get a little bit dicey for USC, because remember I said that the Trojans' O-line is going to look different? Look, I'm not going to say their positions, but these are the guys, unless more injuries happen between now and kickoff, January 2nd, who are going to be the starters according to a couple of sources. These are the names. Cortland Ford, Bobby Haskins, Jonah Monheim, Justin Dietich, Gino Quinones. Those will be the starters. Mix it up, throw them out there. I will not give their precise positions just yet. But again, USC, they're a 2.5-point favorite, and the team on offense and defense is going to be missing players. So either the betting public out there believes Miller Moss is going to shred the Green Wave, little surfing lingo, or Caleb Williams is going to play. Because a suspect Trojan defense going against Tulane's offense, that's not something to bet on. At least they haven't been a defense that I would bet on down the stretch. Speaking of betting, why don't you head on over to BetOnline.net, because they are your number one source for your sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. You can get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. We've got it all for you at betonline.net. And if you're in the sports podcast, you can find those over at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. Couple of quick questions for you before we get out of here on this first episode of Locked On USC, this last week of 2022. What are your overall thoughts? Players opting out, choosing to not play in a bowl game. Look, Jordan Addison, Andrew Voorhees, those guys are healthy enough, I think, to play in the game. Brett Nealon obviously isn't. Travis Dye isn't. Um, I mentioned Tuasivi Nomura. Again, why not use the bowl game to kind of pad your resume? Show potential suitors out there what you can bring to the table, why you would be a valuable asset to their roster. And, to a lesser extent, I'm going to throw the same question to Gary Bryant Jr., wide receiver. Why not go out with a bang? Um, Look, I understand if you're a first round draft pick and you're not playing in the playoffs for a champ or a chance for the playoffs, why you would consider not playing in a bowl game. It makes sense financially. You got to get 100% right. If you're playing in those senior bowl games where hundreds of NFL scouts are going to be grading you, or you're going to the NFL Combine, the USC Pro Day, it makes sense. You got to get yourself right. Trim down that extra fat. Whatever that little weakness is, try and improve it a little bit, because we know it's a meat market when it comes to those things. It's all about measurables. So I get it. But again, players like a Tuasivi Nomura or a Raylan Goforth, I'm not upset that they're in the transfer portal. Any of the guys. This is the direction of college football. It's free agency. It's competing with the NFL now. I'm telling you, the dollars that are being thrown around behind the scenes to keep players in college, it's crazy. You see the quarterbacks that are coming back to playing the Pac-12. What if I told you that Cam Rising's coming back? He threw a dollar figure at Utah. They said, okay. I don't think it's been announced yet, but don't be surprised. So, again, players opting out, I understand it, especially if you're going to the NFL. Players opting out who are jumping in the transfer portal, unless you are a highly coveted guy, it might be in your best interest to play your bowl game. And I understand there is a risk of getting hurt. Still, I think the reward is much greater than the risk. This is that fork in the road for me. If you asked me this question last year or 2 years ago, I'm pretty much anti opt out, but I get it. And again, it's more because of the transfer portal and the way the game is changing with recruiting and the money that's being thrown around. Um, I hate to say it, but it is what it is, and it's only going to continue to get. I don't know if it's going to get better or worse, but as these super conferences continue to emerge, um, the smaller conferences and the teams in the smaller markets, they're going to continue to be AAA affiliates, farm teams, as I said last week on another episode of Locked on USC, for the USCs of the world. That's the way it's going. The Washington States, the Arizonas, your rosters are going to get rated. Oregon State, that's an outlier when you get a DJ Ungalele transferring to your program from a Clemson. What that tells me is maybe that 5-star was overrated. It's not a dig at Oregon State, but let's be honest. Oregon State is a step down from Clemson. So, we will be back with another episode of Locked on USC. Again, I hope everyone had a great Christmas and a great Hannukah. And if you're one of those who like to complain and you still got your Festivus pole up and you're raising those spirits, hey, more power to you. Keep those grievances coming. Vent over here at Locked on USC. I'm here for you. So until the next episode, you guys know what to do, right?